Hey guys, this is Bennett. I have a few new additions to my collection, two of which came back from SGC that I sent out for grading, and one card that I acquired. And I wanted to hop on and talk about them a little bit because one, they're nice cards, and two, because I think it'd be interesting. And I got a lot of good feedback about my video about the T206 set, just to go over a little more of the history of these cards and these sets and the way that they're produced. So the first card on this stack is a 69 Walt Frazier rookie. Out of Topps, they're tall boys. It got an 8.5, so it's a really nice grade on this card. And what's interesting about 69, much like 86 Fleer, is that many players have their quote-unquote rookie cards in 1969 Topps, regardless of how long they had been playing before that, because between 1957 and 1969, there were no Topps basketball cards. So 69 was the first time that Topps produced a set. Well, that's not entirely true. In 68, they produced a test set, which has a really cool Bill Russell in it. But as far as a real set is concerned, they came back with 69. It's very much the same kind of situation you had with Fleer basketball, which produced one set in 1961 and then went dark until 1986. So in 1986, you have the Jordan rookie and the Ewing rookie, and I would be putting air quotes around all of these things, even though they had been in the league. The Barkley rookie, some of them for several years at that point. But I find it interesting, the history of basketball cards in general, and if you don't know, I'm going to give you a brief rundown of how basketball cards sort of were produced in this country, and then I'll move on to the next card in this stack. First basketball cards were produced by Bowman Gum. Yes, Bowman was a gum company in 1948. It was a sort of a one and done for Bowman, and then it kind of happened in fits and starts. Topps doesn't make their first basketball set until 1957, I believe. That's the one with the Russell rookie in it, and it was also coincidentally the first year the Topps produced cards for all four major sports. They then promptly stop, come back in 69, produce cards from 69 to 81, and then stop again. We get, Topps had a couple of smaller issues like the Topps Olympic, I think, in 1983. And then there were some smaller brands like Star that had produced cards in 84 and 85. I think Star might have actually produced cards in 83 as well, but I'm not sure. And then Topps has no cards from 1983 to 1991. I know it's hard to imagine in this modern era that basketball cards or cards in general just weren't profitable. They weren't a profitable business. So these companies, tried different things and tried to produce cards and realized they weren't making any money, and they would stop and they would come back and stop and come back. And then once you get into the early 90s, we pretty much have a pretty consistent run from then up until now. But the early years of basketball cards, they tried a lot of different things. Thus, these tall boys here in 1969 were sort of a gimmick that Topps tried to get people interested. I think they're really cool cards. This Frazier is a really, really nice example of what these cards look like in a high grade. Then Topps goes back to a more normal issue for the years that follow. In 72, you have the Irving rookie that everybody knows what that looks like. And then they go back to, you'll see in the next card, in 76, they go back to the tall boys again. I guess popularity and interest must have been waning. This is a Jabbar All-Star. This got an 8. That's a really nice card. These were two very, very good grades from SGC. I was pleasantly surprised by the Frazier getting an 8.5, the Kareem getting an 8. These are really nice. Again, nice examples of these cards. But it's really interesting to think about how much of an afterthought sports cards were in general for the public and for these companies. They were really, really trying to make it happen. But basketball, before the 1990s, basketball compared with football and baseball in this country, ran a very, very, very distant third, if not fourth behind hockey. You had those Islanders teams in the late 70s, early 80s, and then you had Gretzky was a phenomenon. I would argue that in that era, hockey might have been the third most popular sport. Obviously, it's not the case anymore. But anyway, so that's the Jabbar. Now, the last card I'm going to show you, we're taking a total detour, and we're going all the way back to 1914. And this is another tobacco card. This was from 1914. This is a Fatima cigarettes. It's Roger Bresnahan. This is the T222 set. Now, Bresnahan was a catcher primarily. He also played the outfield, played for several different teams during his career. He was elected to the Hall of Fame in 45, I believe, 1945. An interesting fact about Bresnahan was the first guy to come up with a lot of the safety gear that you think of as commonplace now today in baseball. He was the first one to think about shin guards for catchers. He was the first one to wear them. He also later on developed the first batting helmet. Bresnahan was a so-so manager, a losing record as a manager for both the Cubs and the Cardinals, but managed, I think, some 900 games. He was a manager for a long time. And like I said, was a Hall of Fame catcher. But what's interesting about these, if you notice as you look at it, now it's got an A for authentic. I'm not entirely sure why that grade came in that way. I don't know if it was trimmed or altered in some way. But there are some really interesting things about this set that I thought I would talk about real quick. As you notice on the back, so this is for Fatima Turkish Blend cigarettes. They were produced by Liggett and Myers Tobacco Company. It says that there were 100 photographs of famous baseball players, American athletic champions, and photoplay stars. In reality, that number is 63. I don't know if they just never produced the other cards or they've never been found. My hunch is they've never produced them because there are lots of these out there. 52 of them are baseball players. 4 of them were famous athletes from other sports, and 7 were photoplay stars, or as we would probably have referred to them in the 50s, pinups, or now, now I don't know what we'd call them. We'd probably call them incredibly tame now. Anyway, a couple of the things that are interesting about this set is that if you'll notice, the card itself, if you can compare it to these tall boys, the card's huge compared to other tobacco cards. It's more than twice the size of a typical tobacco card from the era. So that makes it really unique. The paper was very, very thin. The stock was very thin, unlike T206, which is more substantial. So these are very hard to find, not creased. Even in mid-grades, these are very difficult to find. And putting together a complete set, due to some of the short prints in this set, is a Herculean task at best. That's really it about the T222s. They followed on the heels of the 1913 T200s, which was also by Fatima, but was a totally different kind of issue and only featured the Major League Baseball teams. This was a return to individual players, so that also is a distinctive quality about these cards, or a distinctive feature for the 1914 Fatima cigarettes that didn't happen in 13. Anyway, that's it, guys. I just I know these last couple of videos have been about a little bit more of a history lesson than a reveal. I have a huge submission coming back from PSA. I'm going to be breaking it up into several different videos, but you'll see that coming very soon. Please, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you dropping a like. Drop me a comment. Let me know how things are going. I hope all is well, and I'll see you soon.